What is this shit? And I'm gonna fuck this up. He's not. Is he Asian? What is he? What was Bruce Lee? Was Bruce Lee Chinese?
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat The Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
I'll be goddamned.
And each week we take a look back in time, decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit chatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you would like to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are you reviewing tonight?
Gene, tonight's film, I'm very excited. As a kid of the 80s, I think even 90s, I think our generation, there's one thing we could all agree on. Fucking ninjas and martial arts. Did you ever have a friend who said, that's either boring, I don't like it, it's not exciting?
Never.
I don't remember anybody.
It was universally loved. In fact, when I was a kid, the best way to get me to do something was to tell me it was ninja or martial arts related. Eat these meatballs. Ninjas eat them. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah, I remember there was a store in town, I've probably talked about this, that sold like ninja stars. They sold the climbing, the wrist things and the feet and some katanas. That was like forbidden. That was like a dangerous place you'd go, and you could believe that you would become the kid American ninja. It was exciting.
I think you just cracked the code, man. Like, we know superheroes. Like, you can't be Superman, right? You're never going to be Superman. You don't have the billions of dollars to be Batman, okay? We know that we're never going to be Luke Skywalker or a Jedi or a Sith, but maybe, just maybe, with the right training and gear, you could be a ninja.
All you need is a tragedy. Your family gets butchered, right? Some ninjas come in, some rogue ninjas, shoot your parents with arrows right in front of you. You get adopted by somebody in LA. They train you by like tying you up like they're going to draw and quarter you, doing splits. Mm-hmm. It could happen to anybody.
And listeners, we understand that in rapid fire, Jake is not a ninja, but he's kind of a ninja.
We don't know. We don't know if he's a ninja.
It's true. We don't know.
There could be, the prequel to this, where we find out his backstory. We don't, and it's embarrassing. Like you said, how we could dream about being a ninja. I remember as a fat kid, not athletic, Gene.
No.
Not, and I remember seeing those hooks for your feet and your hands, and I was thinking, fuck, if I got those, and I ran up this whole situation, I would climb the trees in the park, I would eavesdrop on people, I would jump down, and they would see me and be like, wow, that's cool. I don't think that's what people would have thought if they saw me in a tree.
Ironically, instead of climbing shit, you ended up just jumping out of airplanes.
Yeah, still not as cool.
I don't know. It's pretty fucking cool.
Okay, but still ninjas. I think ninjas take the cake. But this week, again, we're very excited to delve back into the dangerous and exciting world of martial arts and then seek vengeance for our great listener, Rob from Blighty, who's asked us to go back to 1992 and review the American action film Rapid Fire.
And Rob was kind enough to write in from across the pond and said, greeting once again from Blighty. I hope you're doing well, and 2026 continues to be a great year for both of you. My first commission in this round is Rapid Fire from 1992. I'm curious whether you or the listeners are familiar with it. It feels like one of those films that slipped under the radar for many people, and whenever I rave about it to friends, I'm usually met with puzzled looks as if to say, Rob, I have no idea what you're on about. To be fair, that's probably a common reaction when I start talking about films, as I am probably boring them senseless. When I went for a rewatch recently, I found it very difficult to find on any UK streaming services. So I went back to good old physical media, which is by far the best format anyway. Luckily, and after many weeks of hunting, I was able to secure a copy and sat down to watch and reminisce. I'm glad I did, as in my view, it's an absolute belter. For me, it's the film that really showcased Brandon Lee's talent, particularly with regard to action and martial arts. The Crow understandably brought him widespread recognition for obvious reasons, even if you, Gene, and the old Shat crew tore it a new one back in 2019. And Showdown in Little Tokyo with Dolph Lundgren is good, but Rapid Fire remains my personal favorite. Every time I revisit it, I can't help but wonder what might have been if Brandon Lee hadn't tragically died in 1993. How big could he have become? Personally, I think he had all the ingredients to be the major star of the 90s and 2000s. He had the looks, a distinct fighting style compared to the likes of Van Damme, Chuck Norris, and Steven Seagal, solid acting ability, athleticism, humor, and undeniable screen presence. Oh, and he's also Bruce Lee's son, so the apple doesn't fall far from the ass-kicking tree. The defense rests, Your Honor. The supporting cast is strong, too, with the late Powers Boothe standing out as the grizzled, determined cop hell-bent on pursuing and bringing down the mafia and triad drug kingpins. I've always enjoyed his work, in particular Tombstone and Southern Comfort, and I think he pairs well with Brandon Lee here. Yes, the story is pretty formulaic, as most were back then, and still are now, but the fight scenes are excellent. In particular, I love the restaurant scene where Brandon Lee goes on a one-man rampage, the kitchen scene with the corrupt FBI agent constantly having his nose smashed to bits by the door, and the final, up-close and personal Jeet Kune Do-influenced hand-to-hand fight with the henchman in the laundry. I don't think I've ever seen a clothing rail used so effectively in a movie before or since. Brilliant. The other bit I like about the fight scenes is that they seem to always use the surroundings as part of the fight. I mentioned the clothes rail being used, but in other scenes, he doesn't simply stab someone. Instead, he throws the entire cutlery drawer at them, or he kicks the bed so the bad guy falls off balance, or he smashes a pillar to crush the huge bodyguard in the restaurant. Simple things, but they really stood out for me as it was different from the usual one-kick wins or knockouts. Adapt and improvise, I think it's called. There are also plenty of respectful nods to Bruce Lee's style in films, which always bring a smile to my face. And thanks to this movie, I can't go 10-pin bowling alleys anymore without thinking of Powers Boothe losing his patience with that final pin and blasting it to smithereens. Now, onto my wipe score, and fingers crossed for a better showing this time. Rapid Fire is far from a perfect film, and given Gene's experience with Krav Maga and other disciplines, I'm especially interested and slightly nervous to hear his take on Brandon Lee's martial arts ability. Please be gentle, Gene. It is 1992 after all, and compared to some of the trash back then, this is a masterpiece. For me, it's a solid 1.75 white movie. Thanks as always, fellas, and hope you're enjoying all the cheddar from ads, which don't offend me in the slightest. You deserve the extra money after all these years of hard work and bringing us listeners fun and laughter every week. Just don't forget us in the future when you're sitting in your matching villas in Barbados, overlooking the ocean whilst reporting these podcasts. Now that's definitely worth the ads being in the show. Until next time, take care and cheers. Rob H., the UK one.
I don't know if one person wrote this. Either he's schizophrenic, because I wrote down some notes. Far from perfect, but yet he did not point out one problem, one flaw in the entire film. Then he says it's a 1.75. Then he talks about how he recommends this masterpiece to multiple people who look at him like he's kind of a bit strange. He couldn't point out one flaw. Even Brandon Lee, he's making Brandon Lee out to be the Schwarzenegger. He would have been Stallone. He would have rivaled all of these big-time action stars. I don't know if he can be objective.
In his defense, I did truncate this a little bit. So he did point out that Brandon Lee did have some early questionable low-budget roles that didn't have great acting in them. I also do not take schizophrenia lightly, and those are the words of Dick Ebert and not Gene Lyons. But I do want to speak to one incredible deal you guys can get right now. It has nothing to do with this podcast. We're getting no money for it. But if you want to own Rapid Fire right now, it is actually cheaper to buy it on Amazon than to rent it.
I bought it from Apple, $4.99, same as renting. I'm now a permanent owner until Apple decides to get rid of it.
Amazon, which I've been trying to avoid buying anything from, I got it for $1.75.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, so if you want to watch Rapid Fire over and over and over again and become a Rapid Fire scholar like Rob H., this is your opportunity, guys. Not physical media, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah, so, Rob mentioned how the podcast wasn't kind to the Crow. I was not part of that. I was not part I think it's a travesty. I think I need to go back and we have to make amends. I loved it. And granted, I still listen to the soundtrack occasionally. I think the film, in my eyes, made him a star. As we've seen some more of his work, I think that may have been the highlight for me.
I think you're forgetting Brandon Lee sitting on a rooftop playing guitar for no reason. The soundtrack's great. Movie,
See, I'm speaking from my nostalgic memory of the film. I need to go back and watch it because when this commission came in from Rob, I didn't remember much of him. He was a flame gene and he burned so bright for such a short time. I don't know. We'll get into it in the podcast, but I think if he had lived longer, I don't think his legacy and he would have been viewed the same. But we'll see how we work that out in the podcast.
Prior to this commission, I had only ever seen Brandon Lee in The Crow. So that's what I was going based off of. And I wasn't super impressed. If you recall, I gave it 4 wipes on the podcast. And like Rob mentioned, martial arts movies were not great in 1992. In 1992, the biggest martial arts star in the world was Jean-Claude Van Damme. And he's no slouch, but we can't say that they're anywhere near the level of what we're seeing today from even just like a normal action movie. So I waited until I was completely alone to watch this one. Like, I did not want to subject anybody else to Rapid Fire after watching the trailer for it. It was like the scat porn of commissions. I still feel weird talking about having seen it.
You were going to watch it on a plane.
Yeah.
I was like, that's dangerous because you don't know who else is going to. And we've done quite a bit of the movies now, Gene. I just went back to look. I remember Revenge of the Ninja. We did Bloodsport, Karate Kid, Mortal Kombat. Surprisingly good, like martial arts, was The Last Dragon.
Yeah.
I remember how good he was. Street Fighter, we've done.
Delta Force.
I just remember the motorcycle rockets. I don't remember. We did Best of the Best.
You don't remember Chuck Norris jumping from a story higher and landing on like 2 dudes?
Oh, yes. But that's
Badass.
Chuck Norris. That's Chuck Norris.
Rapid Fire is a 1992 action film starring Brandon Lee, Powers Boothe, and Nick Mancuso. It follows a martial artist and a police lieutenant attempting to apprehend 2 drug lords. Director Dwight H. Little was known for his work on Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, but could not get work as an action director until, ding ding, Steven Seagal used him to direct Marked for Death, which was a hit over at Fox. Interested in having an action star of its own because Steven Seagal was only allowed to do 1 movie with Fox, Fox kept Little around to pair with their up-and-coming star, Brandon Lee. Let's hit the trailer.
Move over, Van Damme and Seagal. Brandon Lee has arrived. Brandon Lee is just as exciting, intense, and charismatic as his legendary father, Bruce Lee. Rapid Fire.
Are you having a bad day or what?
Rated R. Starts Friday at theaters everywhere.
In Thailand, mafia drug distributor Antonio Serrano visits his longtime associate Kinman Tao, a drug kingpin. Serrano is having troubles and wants them to work together, but his request is not reciprocated. Big D, I promise I'll get on board with dragging this movie a little bit later, but I have to admit, I was intrigued at first. Once we got past the psychedelic, like slow motion training montage, clearly meant to connect Brandon Lee to Fists of Fury, Rapid Fire, oddly, picked up at a pretty snazzy pace. You think you're going to get, as Rob said, a kind of a paint by numbers, mob boss is going to meet drug supplier in Asia kind of setup. But instead, we get this strange mix of boilerplate dialogue, like the normal dialogue we're expecting to get from a movie like this. But then we got like this cool stick fighting scene. So it's keeping me entertained while I would normally be bored with bad dialogue. Normally, in a movie, you're going to get one of two things. You're going to get good action, like a lot of ass kicking, but just yelling nonsense, right? Or you're going to get a bunch of talking, and we're like, when the hell is somebody going to fight? This mix of the two, it at least kept me interested enough to want to know what's going to happen next.
Okay, so you talk about the origin stories. They're in Thailand, the stick fighting, right? Yeah. That's between Tao and some of his nameless guys.
Mm-hmm.
Give me that for the main character. Give me it about Jake. All the other movies I just talked about, Karate Kid, what's his origin? He needs to learn karate to defend himself. He's getting bullied. Miyagi teaches him. Let's go with Last Dragon. Same deal, right? You need the origin story. You need to see where they come from. What was the other one that we were talking about with the
Revenge of the Ninja?
No. Let's see. Sorry. We were talking about Bloodsport, right? Bloodsport, same thing. He's getting bullied. His friend's father teaches him, trains him up. We need that. You called this a training montage. This was a psychedelic hallucination. It was like hand waving. It was more like a performance. Like when sometimes the karate, like they do the tournaments where they're just doing a slow. That was not training. I need to know, how did Jake learn to fight? Because he's pretty badass. He's disarming people. It's not just karate or martial arts. He's dropping dudes. He's shooting every type of firearm. He's shooting straight. He's killing them. He's handling chaos. He is almost as if he was trained to be a special agent, a soldier, a ninja, everything. And I'm just sitting there waiting. Okay, when are we going to get the flashback? Give me the origin story. I need to know so I can understand him. And I know we're going to get this whole Tiananmen Square thing, right? Yeah, that's a good backstory. It's dramatic. It gives some weight into what he's gone through, but it doesn't explain why is he a secret agent who can infiltrate. He can go undercover. He knows every firearm, every martial art. It's kind of backwards. They needed to start off where they could build him into somebody we could follow and understand. And picking Bruce Lee's son, I understand why you cast him. Rob liked him. He said he would have been a huge star. And this might be a hot take, and this is my honest opinion now coming into my second film that I've watched with him. I don't think he's a superstar. I think if he lives beyond The Crow, I don't know how much potential he had. Because, yes, he's fluid. He knows the martial arts, but he's missing something. He's got a bit of that, like, gosh darn it, and he's like a bit goofy and not in a funny, like Sylvester Stallone or Arnold way. He doesn't connect. I know he's supposed to be a romantic lead here, and he's going to get the ladies. I don't buy it. He looks good, yes, but there's something about him. There's that charisma. There's something that doesn't connect. And I think with him dying and Bruce Lee, when his father dying as well young, that we've built up this mythos of him, this legacy. I don't think, Gene, do you think that he continues on this path, or does it kind of fade off and tarnish his legacy and his father's?
I mean, I'm inclined to say like Steven Seagal made it. Christopher Lambert made it. So I can't Brandon Lee. But both of those guys, they've got a certain something. Steven Seagal is on screen delivering lines. Christopher Lambert, you can't look away from it. But no, Big D, in an era, as Rob mentioned, that had Van Damme, Jet Li, Jackie Chan was still around doing movies. I don't think Brandon Lee would develop anything near Bruce Lee's legacy. Too much competition, not outstanding enough. And you're right. He moves really well, but he's not scary. Like, you don't look at Brandon Lee and go, well, I wouldn't want to fight that guy, right?
No.
He's kind of pretty, like in the face. Like, he's got very like sculpted features, but a guy that's that pretty on screen, like a Cary Elwes, right? He's got to be debonair. He's got to be charming, right? And he doesn't have that. But he's also can't be cast as like the gritty guy. Like, you think about a Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis looks like, or Vin Diesel, like they look like kind of rough dudes, so they don't have to be as charming. If I had to pick a word to describe Brandon Lee, I mean, he's sort of generic. If he weren't Bruce Lee's son, he's just a guy that's in B movies doing action scenes.
I think even worse, he's trying to be his father. the way he moves, the way he sets up, the little movements he does. You can see him understanding why he's on screen and what people are expecting from him. But there's also a goofiness that's not in the successful way that Jackie Chan does it, right? Jackie Chan was the master of the pratfall, but it was in stunts that you were like, holy shit, he just fell backwards down a ladder, didn't kill himself. Here, he's making mistakes. The worst ass kicking he gets is from a sliding ladder. That's the biggest beatdown that he gets as a character. And I don't think there was nothing that showed me potential or made me want to go out and buy a ticket to see him again. But The Crow, him in the paint, him brooding, my memory of that, I think if he died making this movie, Gene, is he this story about him that lives on, a legacy? I don't think it is.
Well, after witnessing the death of his father at Tiananmen Square, Los Angeles art student Jake Lowe, we forgot he's also an art student, is lured to a party of Chinese pro-democracy activists. While there, he witnesses Serrano killing party sponsor Carl Chang, who is an associate of Tao. When Serrano and his men attempt to kill Jake, Jake disarms them and escapes. He's placed under protective custody by federal agents who coerce him into coming to Chicago to testify against Serrano. So Big D mentioned the flashback to Tiananmen Square. I don't know that I needed a flashback to understand that Jake's dad was killed at Tiananmen Square. No, I don't need that. But do I need a flashback to understand that Jake's father was run over by a very slow-moving tank? Absolutely, I needed to see that. This is a movie that seems desperately to want a dramatic moment, and it can't settle for something serious like Chinese soldiers shot Jake's dad while he was trying to help somebody. They can't settle for that because all the audience is seeing is a cartoon steamroller gag in slow motion.
But you're missing the point. He's trapped under like some bleachers. So he's helplessly watching it happen. We've already said this doesn't establish his background, his character, his skills. It doesn't explain anything. So I'm like, why would you do it? Underneath, I can see that somebody wanted this to be a profound film. Maybe that's how they got him. Maybe he thought, I'm not just going to be an action star. I'm going to make some kind of a political statement. You know, we're going to make this a bigger film. But if you think through it, yes, it's provocative. Everybody remembers it. You're building some background for him, but surviving Tiananmen Square, what does it add? It's not explained in the plot anywhere. And later on, the only reason it actually plays a part in this film, because he was at Tiananmen Square, the nude woman who he is drawing in class lures him to a protest so he can speak about Tiananmen Square, where he just happens to witness the murder by a crime boss who identifies him. That is the only reason. It was probably also so they could say, that's why he speaks Chinese.
Brandon Lee had direct access to the writers. Like that was the thing they did intentionally. They're like, hey, we think, again, Fox thinks that he's going to be the big shit. He's going to be their action star or whatever. And they gave him access to that, which I think maybe, you know, you get an Arnold Schwarzenegger in there. Yeah, maybe you give him access. Fuck, I even say Keanu Reeves. Like, no, like you're not allowed to talk to the writers. You just read what they write.
No, and especially after you had just done, was it Showdown in Little Tokyo with Dolph Lundgren?
Yeah,
you haven't cut your teeth in the business long enough to be writing or go out there, look pretty, show off your abs, kick people through the windows, throw cutlery at them, do whatever it matters. And again, I don't want to be shitting on Brandon Lee, but it's a weird casting. If he's not Bruce Lee's son, why would you hire? To me, he looks very Caucasian. I don't know how politically correct this is, but he looks like a white kid. He looks like a white kid so much that characters ask him, like, hey, what are you doing here? And when he speaks Chinese, they're surprised. People know he doesn't belong, right? So you're explaining how he speaks Chinese, but what I don't get is why would you cast him? Because he just stands out so much. Explain it in a way. It's like Arnold. We needed a reason why he has his accent in a lot of his roles. And a lot of the roles explained it, like True Lies, where they make a joke about it. He's like, I don't have an accent, or whatever the hell he said. But the mob boss says, when he's witness, hey, get that chink kid. Get him. I would have been like, which one, boss? The white guy with the brown hair? I'm going to go get him over there. I'm sorry. Bruce Leroy, not my traditional mixed martial artist, but at least they address. He's an African-American kid in Harlem fighting here. It doesn't work for me. He's a white kid.
To be fair, other than Serrano, all the other mobsters are like, the black jacket, black suit. So maybe they're trying to clarify for each other which one he's talking about. They're like, yeah, boss is a little racist, but I think it's that guy.
Maybe that's why they shot half the guys, because they couldn't tell which one he was. They're like, the white kid? No.
I mean, it's a tricky one because, yes, his name is Jake also. So like, hey, Jake. Like, yeah, okay. And he looks like a white dude. But let's give Serrano some grace here. The first time Serrano sees him, it is at a Chinese activist, I don't know, I can't even call it it's like at the cocktail party. And Jake does speak Cantonese. Did you know that Bruce Lee's maternal grandfather was either Dutch or German?
I'm not surprised. Look at him.
Yeah.
Look at him.
So Brandon Lee is not just like 50-50 white Asian or white Chinese. No. He's actually like, he leans white.
You can tell he's Chinese where it counts in that he draws his dreams with naked ladies and dragons.
It's true.
Well, what was your take on Serrano? We're talking about stereotypes here. Oh. I did research because I said, this dude cannot be playing an Italian. He's over the top. He is using every catchphrase and stereotype. Forget about it. The dude is 100% Italian. But then it clicked. Do you want to know why he's so weak in this role? He's a Canadian Italian.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The Canadian just sucks all of the venom out of those fangs.
I love that the writers couldn't come up with more things that Italians do. Every scene, they're like, pasta, everybody pasta.
That is all they do.
When the agents at the safe house are revealed to be corrupt, Jake escapes through the window and encounters a young police detective named Carla Withers. Withers' partner, Lieutenant Mace Ryan, helps Jake evade his pursuers and reveals that he has been pursuing Tao for 10 years.
Gene, before we get into this, can I ask a question for clarification?
Sure.
Okay, so you're saying that Mace and his partner, is this an off-the-book ops? I know it's been going for 10 years. It doesn't seem that the other police or the FBI know what's going on. Is this some kind of like black ops police sting?
I'm taking like a Untouchable sort of cue from this, where basically they believe that everybody's corrupt, so they have to be an independent unit that operates out of a bowling alley. Shout out to Fireside Bowl. That was one of my favorite landmarks when I lived in Logan Square, and I can't wait to get back there someday. I mean, in the end, they're definitely off the books, but I think at this point, they were just kind of a special unit that was supposed to avoid all the dark money in the Chicago PD. But flashing back to 1992, shootouts weren't what they are today in films, and the director clearly took a lot of cues from 80s movies shootouts. Lots of high volume fire from flashy guns, lots of double peeking, but the action sequences seemed in rapid fire to miss one key element of shootouts. Usually in a shootout, both combatants have a gun. There are countless scenes in rapid fire, the crooked cop scene in particular, where multiple gunmen are hiding from Jake, who does not have a gun. They have him in this safe house. They brought him there. He came straight from jail. They know he does not have a weapon. There's two guys with guns trying to get him. He's hiding in the kitchen. They're taking cover from a guy with no gun.
Well, he's got those barbecue, utensils. He's got the double fork, and he's probably got the tongs and a big spatula. Yeah. He throws everything, utensils. He throws. He does a lot of door kicking.
Yeah,
the door is probably his most dangerous weapon. But the vibe I got from the action, Gene, was almost like the producers went to the prop house and they were walking around and said, what looks cool? Okay, what are we going to get? They weren't thinking, what would a character have, right? So the feds have these hand cannons that are threaded for silencers. So I'm like, why would the cops be carrying those weapons? How do you explain that all of a sudden he was going to be a cop killer, but yet you discharge, and there's probably 45 rounds there. You can't explain this bloodbath. And later on, there's a full-blown shootout in what's supposed to be, of course, the Italian restaurant with Serrano's men. So, of course, they're rocking Tommy guns. Who's rocking Tommy guns today in a street battle? Then they go even further. One of them has like a double-mounted, look like a 50 cal, in the restaurant window on a swivel, right? So that was in the restaurant. They didn't pull that out. This is like Baghdad. They're shooting up the streets, cars exploding, and then you can catch in the background normal traffic going up and down the street like nothing's happening. It's ridiculous. And this movie's a pile of shit. At this point, I'm wishing there's Teenage Turtles on skateboards eating pizza.
Ryan persuades Jake to help him with a sting operation that goes horribly wrong and almost kills Jake. Later that night, Carla shows Jake his father's confidential file, and they have sex. Both the lovemaking and the events of a raid on Tao's laundry facility are shown alternately as they occur in actual time, culminating with Serrano being murdered in his cell by one of Tao's henchmen.
Okay, so the reason why I asked you earlier, I said, were they actually sanctioned to do any of this? Because this is some Mickey Mouse shit. Jake already has witnessed a murder. He says he's going to do the right thing. He's going to go to Chicago to testify. He's already been almost killed. He then acts like he's guilty as hell. He's throwing dudes out windows. He's shooting other cops. He looks very guilty. So he's now part of a sting operation where they're going to try to get Serrano to confess. The sniper that he has isn't even on a tripod. It's just handheld. Serrano's constantly like walking back and forth across the window. Nobody's taking a shot. There's no discipline. There's no setup. There's no sense. Nobody in this group looks professional. And it undercuts the idea to me that this is federal agents. Instead, it's not tense. It just seems sloppy. I kept thinking, Gene, there was going to be a reveal just like the one lieutenant who was on the take. I was thinking all of these guys were on the take because there's no other explanation why anyone would volunteer to go into there. That poor dude. Yes, he's a corrupt cop, but he's like, what was the line, Gene? Like,
nice doing business with you.
Nice doing business with you. Not nice doing business with you. Nice. The second you see him get killed, I would never be part of his operation.
Aside from being tactically ridiculous, this entire operation just doesn't make sense. First, they're handing Serrano a hostage. They're taking Jake to him, the key witness. They're taking him to him, and they have no plan for how they're going to extract him safely. So let's say they get the information. Let's say the information they want. They find out where the shipment's going to get dropped. Okay, cool. They're going to kill Jake.
Yes.
You have the death of a witness on your hands. But beyond that, the cops know a shipment is coming in. They know when. All they have to do is some simple surveillance because they know who all the key players are. You follow Tao, you follow Serrano, you're probably going to find the drugs. Instead, they send in a dirty Fed who they trust to pull this operation off. They send in a hostage, as I said. And then when shit goes off, they fire in some like canisters of tear gas, and then they just kind of hang back. Mm-hmm. They fail to breach for like 10 minutes. They actually don't breach. It's Jake that ends up coming out with Serrano.
Dude, and then Mace the entire time is listening to Jake get the shit beat out of him. He's talking shit and getting beaten. Is this like the moment where Mace is like, we got to get in there? No, he keeps, hey kid, keep it going. Keep it going. I'm not trusting him. I'm not going to be part of it. So he makes it out of this. The first one, right? This is the point where you leave. I'm an artist. I've been clear. I'm going back to California. I'm out of here. And what does he do? This is right after he's almost gotten him killed. Doesn't seem to care. Doesn't apologize. Now he wants to send him in to the laundromat. You think this is going to be some spy shit, Gene? We're going to wire him up? Fuck no. It looked like a giant Sony Walkman that they're taping to his back. The wires are run up the middle of his shirt with an open collar. He then has an earpiece that he needs to pull out with the curly Q wires. He has to put it in his ear to talk back and forth. It's like he's answering a phone. This isn't spy shit. This isn't covert. They went to Radio Shack and got these parts. And I'm wishing that Jake is like, listen, you just almost got me killed. You got the shit beat out of me. You got Agent Stewart murdered in front of me while he was screaming the code word. I'm not being part of any more of this. It kills the credibility. Did you have a problem? Would you go do volunteer work or undercover work, Gene, here to try to get the bad guy?
Considering Mace and Withers both during this operation get pulled from their own cars separately, 2 separate cars. Mace gets like chloroformed. He gets pulled out of there. I'm starting to feel like they aren't the sharpest cops.
Everybody sees them. You have Mace is trying to communicate. He's sitting on like the steps across the street from the restaurant. I just wish he was a double agent. I wish he was part of Tao's gang, because there's nothing that explains this death wish and the cavalier way that he plays with everybody's lives.
I'm sure weirder sex scenes exist out there in the nostalgia verse, but Big D, we've done nearly 500 movies together, and this has got to be the oddest choice of editing I've ever seen in a sex scene in any movie, Tequila Sunrise included. Okay, we are jumping back and forth with these quick cuts between a failed drug raid at an industrial sized laundry facility and Kate Hodge's boobs. Okay, at one point there's this jailer being killed so they can get access to Serrano, and he looks over his shoulder and goes, "Oh!" And then it's back to Jake and Withers having sex, and I thought somehow he saw them. I don't know what's going on, and it all culminates in Al Long putting on a police uniform, showing up in the jail. He assassinates Serrano in a jail cell. Serrano's on his knees, praying the rosary. And Al Long shows up and he throws a shuriken and like 2 daggers, including a 5th century Mongolian ivory dagger to kill Serrano. That's how the sex scene ends.
I think it starts a little weirder. You've got a third thing going on. Jake is bearing his heart because he has to build on his backstory, right? So he's having a conversation about his father's death and dying for what he believes in. And Brandon's thinking, I'm going to get a fucking Golden Globe for this. There's going to be an award coming my way. He's in his tank top. His muscles are glistening. Carla is as thirsty as can be. You know what's going to happen. We all see it. And she's like, "Oh, it's your father. It's like you just have to live your life and follow your dreams and stand up for somebody and stand up for something." You know what's going to happen. It's dead silent. There's no build up with sexy sax. There's no background music that tells us, hey, this mood. We've now witnessed the murder in the prison. We've now witnessed this heartbreaking conversation. Then you hear like a guitar, like, and it's Hardline, Can't Find My Way. The first stroke of the keys, and they're at it. There's body parts, there's close up. I couldn't tell if it was his shoulder, her thigh, his ass. I didn't know at all what was going on, but this was one of the stranger. I thought the exact same thing. This is like a Van Damme, like time cop sex scene. This is weird.
Jake, Ryan, and Withers subsequently team up once more to bring down Tao. Though Ryan and Withers are captured by Tao's men, Jake rescues them and eventually kills Tao at a train platform. He and Carla then evacuate Ryan from the burning factory and ride to the hospital together in an ambulance.
So it's a mixed bag, right? We've already talked about some of the cast isn't top notch, right? But there is a lot of the cast that you'll notice them. You'll spot them right away. Hey, I remember that guy from Die Hard. That was one of the villains. Oh, I remember all of these guys. Some of the people think they're in a different movie. Brandon Lee obviously thought he was going to be a bigger star, but the one who I think delivers the goods the best it's got to be Powers Boothe. I know you're a fan of him. We've done plenty of his movies, but there's this scene where it's as if he is in a different film. Maybe this was like the second filming unit where they sat him down, and Mace, he's bearing his soul, and he's given a speech about wasting 10 years and having to go back on patrol, and everything's falling apart, and Serrano's gotten killed. And instead of like landing as frustration, it's coming off as, holy shit, this guy is delivering. This is his audition tape. Even if he doesn't get nominated, this will get him a better role because it's legitimate acting. I thought he was great. Every line, he's pushing it. Every emotion is maxed out. It might go to 11 a little bit. It might go over 10. But fuck, man, he's delivering it. And for me, this is acting. It was the highlight of the film. And I just wish the other Brandon, God, when you compare the two, it's night and day. I wish that there had been a way that he could have helped lift Brandon up, because for me, he delivers it.
Rob called out the work that Powers Boothe did in Deadwood, and Powers Boothe as Cy Tolliver is one of the greatest TV performances I've ever witnessed. I will never speak ill of the late Powers Boothe, but some of the lines he had in this movie were beyond stupid. Like they didn't make sense. There's a part where Jake goes to the FBI. Like the guys were crooked in the safe house. He escapes. He calls up his FBI contact and he's like, "Hey man, like you guys needed to help me out. I got attacked." And he goes to the FBI for protection, and Mace pulls up in his beater car and he intervenes. And Jake is standing there and he's confused about who's on his side. And the Fed pulls a gun on Jake. And Powers Boothe says, and I quote, "If this dickhead was any kind of real FBI man, 2 of his buddies dead, he'd have offed you already himself." Yeah, that's probably why this dickhead is pointing a gun at me, cop that I've never met. And I'm sorry, Rob, but some of the things they had Powers Boothe in this movie were just beyond corny, okay? Shooting a bowling pin at the fireside bowl because you kept missing it with the bowling ball, that's not cool. It's reckless.
I think you can't blame him for the dialogue he was given. Maybe this was frustration out of the film he was making.
Yeah.
Maybe he was lashing out not at the ops, but he was lashing out at the production. There was this was a subtle jab, like Christopher Lambert in Highlander 2 or Sean Connery leaving set, or what stuntman was it, Gene, that was, went out on a bender with Bolivian cocaine and came back with like just his sweatpants on? Maybe it was one of those situations.
Like, Mr. Boothe, could you please stop smoking on set?
What's it, illegal? What, are you going to arrest me for smoking?
Let Powers Boothe have a mustache in this movie. It works so much better.
Yeah, see, I've never seen him with the mustache. I didn't watch it. For me, I always think of Red Dawn as the downed pilot. That's what I think of him as. But the movie now, Gene, it's coming to an end here. We have the mystery in the beginning. I thought maybe Tao was going to be revealed as somehow being involved in the Chinese government, which then somehow affected his father being killed and whatever. We get a little explanation of why they were there. But for me, the bigger problem I have is there's this emotional turn that I did not see coming. Jake now has like a Stockholm syndrome relationship building with Mace. Like he takes him on as a father figure. He's talking about sacrifice and mentorship, and he's relating his father's sacrifice in Tiananmen Square to Mace Ryan's ridiculous endangering situations that he has put Jake in. Countless people have been killed. He's reckless. He burned down an entire laundromat. How many innocent people have died? He's broken into another man, a police officer, an agent's home, and traumatized his wife. And what does Jake get out of this? Boy, this is like my dad. There's no foundation of a relationship here. It feels like the movie, it's trying to create this emotional tie at the end that's not earned. Mace was willing to have Jake die a few hours ago if it meant getting Tao in that Mickey Mouse operation. Now, instead of it being something that's believable, and now both men are all of a sudden like, I could see part 2. Maybe they were trying to build to a partner film. Maybe Jake joins the squad and they go off Mission Impossible through Southeast Asia, trying to track the opium and try to track down maybe his father's commander. How do you explain this? Did this land for you?
No. Jake doesn't need a dad in this movie. He needs a lawyer. This whole movie could have been over in 30 minutes if Jake was allowed any of his constitutional rights, right? Hey, you're gonna testify against this guy. No, I'm not. Call my lawyer, okay? And some people will say we're missing the point because we're talking about, Mace's relationship with Jake instead of talking about the kick-ass fight scene between Jake and Tao on the L tracks. But that's just it. That is the point, right? When you muddy this movie with all this forced gravity and these connections between people, you take what is a 90-minute, and I had to check that time. It is only a 90-minute movie. It feels like a 3-hour slog because there's so much shit in there. Take those moments out. Give us more. Fuck, I'll take more 50 cal in the streets of Chicago. I'll take more, fighting in a laundromat, any of that shit, right? I'll take more sex scenes, whatever. But please, please, please don't give me these relationships that make no sense.
Give me that fucking motorcycle. Fucking that hole in the beginning where you have Jake riding his motorcycle up the stairs and jumping out the windows.
Yeah.
Give me more of that shit and less, revealing my emotions and my sadness about my father being special forces. You're focusing on the wrong thing.
Well, now is the time of the podcast where we give our Shat score for rapid fire. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie take to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's hanging out at Fireside Bowl. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It's when you got wrinkles on the inside. Big D, you go first. What's your score for rapid fire?
I feel horrible because Rob likes this film. He's a great supporter of the podcast, but I need to be true. I need to show my inner wrinkles, Gene. This is a fucking bad movie. This is an hour and a half that I kept wishing, please be the climax. Please give me the final reveal, the final kick. Because some of these, I like my kicks, Gene. But it was like kick, fall on the floor, kick the door, kick, fall on the floor, jump. There is a couple badass moves where he does like this somersault on the chain link fence.
Yeah, it's good.
But it's a lot of bad action. It was ridiculous action. The plot doesn't make any sense. There's these flashes of what it could have been. Simplify it. But it just never pulls it together. And for me, it was not a good time. I think it's a bad film, and I think that Rob should stop telling people about this film. It's a 4-wiper.
Brandon Lee showed one thing in this movie. He can really move. His fighting, it's okay. There were, Rob, if you want my analysis, there were some elbows and some knees in there, which I really, really liked. Like he was throwing some heat in there, incorporating some of the Muay Thai that he knows. But if you go back and you watch, let's say, Fists of Fury, okay, you'll see Bruce Lee and his co-stars, they were tough with one another. Like you watch and the contact that they're making, even though it is Kung Fu. And yeah, when you have like the aerials where they're jumping at each other and then you see like the camera cut to a close up of somebody's face and a foot's just hitting it. Not that. I'm not talking about that, but the intricate footwork, the speed of the strikes, the ferocity that they were working with. It is a different level than what we're seeing here in Rapid Fire. And Bruce Lee was, I dare say, twice the speed of Brandon Lee. I mean, he just moved, and I'm not talking about when they sped up the camera. I'm talking about his normal speed in movies like Fist of Fury. You could see just how fast he was. Instead, Brandon Lee brings something else to the screen that I do want to call out. He has an almost ethereal quality to his parkour. Okay, when he swings up against gravity or jumps down off of something or slides or does, as you mentioned, Big D, that really incredible aerial fence spin while he's fighting Al Long, it feels like you're watching something supernatural. A human does not normally move that way. And those were real stunts done by Brandon Lee. And I'd like to think that led to The Crow, which I can't believe I'm saying this, is oddly the superior movie here. But in The Crow, it's a lot more of that, of him moving, evading, not doing so much of the traditional, what you would consider Kung Fu. But I'm right there with you, Big D, unanimous 4 wipes.
I think you're right. I think it's as if you keep him in the shadows. Here, he's too goody two-shoes out in the open. Dare I say, maybe even like more villain roles. We would have seen a different side to him because as a good guy, he's too gosh darn dolly. He's fucking like doing pencil artwork of a hot girl, and here's what I see. And there's a dragon. Maybe he just had some bad counsel. Maybe he would have had a better manager or people who didn't want to just take advantage of his legacy and the name. We know what happens, but with 4 wipes, again, Gene, it puts it into a batch of movies that I think are surprisingly close to this. We have Real Genius, Arachnophobia, The Crow, Blue Thunder, Purple Rain, Caveman, Just One of the Guys, and Pure Country. In the 428 spot.
Wow. 428.
I think this is worse. I mean, here's a question. The Cloak and Dagger, better or worse? Well, I'm going to just tell you these are the worst movies. Cloak and Dagger.
I'd rather watch Cloak and Dagger.
100%. Haunted Honeymoon.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Haunted Honeymoon. Yeah, I'd watch that.
Time Cop.
I'd rather watch that.
Okay. Fuck yes. Yeah. Backdraft.
Oh, 100% Backdraft.
Tron.
Sex scenes are better. I'd rather watch Tron.
Yeah. My Science Project. God, I could
That's
keep
Dennis
going.
Hopper.
I could keep going here, Gene. I think it's worse than Four Wipes, but it's a bad film.
All right, Rob. Well, there you have it. 4 wipes, not quite the 1.75 that you predicted for rapid fire. Before we close out, we got some email coming in from listeners, and we're going to do our best to get caught up here. Our first email comes from Damien, who says, "Hello, Shat The Movies. My name is Damien. I'm a newer listener from Ontario, Canada, and I'm absolutely loving your podcast. I discovered your show randomly one day while browsing movie podcasts, and I was immediately drawn to your logo. I love your format, and your stories and tangents may be even more fun than the reviews themselves. I'd love to support you guys and commission a movie called Waxwork from 1988. I'm curious if you guys are familiar with this one. It's a horror comedy about a wax museum where you step into the exhibits and they come to life. It had a very limited theatrical release, but later found an audience on home video and went on to become a cult classic. This is one that I actually discovered on my own when I wanted to check out some of Zach Galligan's other movies and ended up really liking it. Zach Galligan is Billy from Gremlins. Let me know if you guys would be up for this one. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie, and I'd love to introduce it to some of your listeners who might not be familiar with it by adding it to the Shat Pantheon. It's a very fun, campy, late 80s horror flick with a good cast, a fun premiere, and some fun and charming practical effects. Money is unfortunately a bit tight for me at the moment as I'm unemployed and living on a fixed income. But as soon as I have some more, maybe in a few months when I get my tax return, I'll happily send some your way. Thank you for the hours and hours of entertainment. Your podcast rules. Damien from Ontario.
Thank you, Damien. Looking at the poster here, this looks like a freak show. I think some of these weird, misfit films are some of my favorite to do. I'd be all for it. It says, "Stop by and give Afterlife a try. More fun than a barrel of mummies."
Is Halloween open this year?
No, I don't think that. I don't know if this looks. I want to get something scary. I'm voting right now for Prince of Darkness. It's so long overdue.
Our next one comes up from Dave Crane. He says, "Hi, Shat Crew. I'd love to nominate the classic comedy Private Parts with Howard Stern. It's such a wild mix of shock jock chaos, genuine heart, and unforgettable radio moments. The film captures the whole era of broadcasting culture, and I think it's perfect for your style of breakdown and banter. I also want to say how much I love the show. I listen every week from Burton-on-Trent here in the UK, and it's always a highlight. I'd be excited to hear what each of you thinks about this one, whether it still holds up today. Thanks for considering it. Best regards, Dave Crane."
I'd be into it. I loved Stern when he was on the regular New York radio, and I remember watching this film when it came out, and it's funny to watch. Even at that point, he was probably 35, 40 years old, and he's playing himself at college at Boston University. We get Paul Giamatti. Oh, I would love to do this. You get where he gets one of the listeners to sit on top of her speaker, and he starts. It's debauchery. It's dirty fun.
I remember going into this one in theaters and thinking I wasn't expecting a whole lot, and it ended up being a lot better than I expected it to be, which, again, it's like his first movie. It's Howard Stern playing Howard Stern. Like, it seems very self-indulgent, but I was pretty entertained then. I'd be excited to go back and see what I think of it now as an adult. All right. Well, that's it for voicemail. If you'd like to email us host@shatpod.com or go to shatpod.com and use the SpeakPipe feature. Big D, what do you have coming up next week?
A young driver hits the open road for a routine job, but a chance encounter with a mysterious hitchhiker turns the trip into a waking nightmare. As the miles pile up, so does the tension, with a relentless pursuer who seems to be everywhere all at once. Law enforcement only makes things worse, blurring the line between victim and suspect. What follows is a brutal game of survival where trust is impossible and escape feels out of reach. Next week, we're watching a story of fear, isolation, and how one bad decision can spiral into hell. Commissioned by Rob H. This was a small film, but I remember this scaring the shit out of me as a kid. And I don't pick up hitchhikers today, Gene, partially because of this film. And I know you do it because you think it's kind of cool, but next week, hopefully you'll learn it's not all fun and games with hitchhikers.
I mean, it's fine if you're on a motorcycle.
Have you seen this film?
No, I have not. I'm excited.
Oh, I hope the ending.
I think
holds
Rob is going to redeem himself with this one. It sounds good.
Yeah, I really hope it holds up because I remember that final scene is burned in my mind. And if you've watched the film, you know what I'm talking about.
And while we're talking about hitchhikers and motorcycles, by the way, the King Bee going very soon to do his motorcycle trip from Arizona all the way to Nashville. And he's looking for some help with expenses. So we cooked up an idea at Big D, which is going to be called Reviews from the Road. And I'll figure out how to get payment set up. But basically, if you'd like the King Bee to record a review for you, which we will then share on our Instagram feed, you can throw him a couple bucks, let him know what movie you want him to do. And then he, while motorcycling across the United States, will record you his review of the film that you want. We're going to limit them to like 1 minute reviews, so they won't be very expensive. But would love to get people's reviews. So we'll set up, I think probably do it through like Venmo, and you could just Venmo him directly or Venmo us with your request. And then he'll record them and we'll tag you if you have a tag on Instagram or Facebook. And if you don't have either of those, I will personally email you your video review, but it'll also be up publicly, so you can just go watch it. Anyway, thank you, Rob, for your commission of Rapid Fire. Thank you for your upcoming commission. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat The Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat The Movies. You can email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by buying our merch or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV. Review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever we find podcasts be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
The moment he stops, the terror starts.
I swear I didn't kill those people. I got sprayed by this guy who picked up hitchhiking.
Do you believe me?
The Hitcher, rated R, starts Friday at a theater near you.